Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to the weekly Bakken get-together. My name is Jason Spiess. I'm your host today. How you doing? We've got a couple cameras set up here. We also have our audio backup just in case. And thank you very much. The 60,000 people at Bakken.com and the 47,000 followers at Marcellus.com, 50,000 with the Eagleford, 20,000 with the Permian Basin, 15,000 Haynesford, the Niobrara 10,000, giving us 250,000 social media followers with Bakken and Facebook. And then, of course, we throw in our personal stuff, and then, boy, we're at like 250,002. Okay, woo! I don't want to lose my one follower I have on Twitter, folks. Okay, thank God for these platforms. Once again, Jason Spiess here. This is the weekly Bakken get-together, and we're here with Anthony. Is it Molzahn?
Molzahn.
Molzahn.
Moles on your face. Yeah.
Italian?
Very German, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Molzahn. Sounds Molzahn. Italian.
Yeah, no. And
Spiess is German.
Yep.
That's. I mean, you can't get that mixed up with much. Spiess.
Yeah, my grandma got pretty mad at my mom. I have an Italian first name and a German last name, and that does not go well in the German community. In
fact, the word Spiess has like hair coming out of the S's.
Yes.
We're so German. I made that one up. Anyway, so Mr. Molzahn, Anthony is going to be talking with us today. He's the co-founder and the CEO of Aegis Flow?
Yep, Aegis Flow, yep.
Or
Aegis Flow if you like to follow the Oxford Dictionary.
So we're going to go with Aegis Flow here, but that is his company, and it's a pilot platform. So what we're going to talk about today is the UAS industry, and not specifically so much in the Bakken as just the industry in itself, and we'll bleed in the Bakken, but it's a good idea to kind of have a little bit of a 5,000-foot view, if you will, to understand exactly how this is going to work, because it is going to be working side by side with the oil and gas industry. Also, the state of North Dakota with the higher ed system, which the governor's talked about, Lynn Helms has talked about, as well as Doug Goring, the ag commissioner. Now, keep in mind, Doug Goring and the governor are 2/3 of the Industrial Commission, which control the oil and gas rules and regulations. So a lot of that stuff does tie in. Also, North Dakota is one of 7 states that is a designated test state from the federal government, which gives North Dakota a lot of leeway and a lot of play when it comes to developing the rules and regulations with the UAS industry, the UAV industry, otherwise known as the drone industry. I'm going to be using those 3 periodically because, oh wait, there's even a new one now with an R, right?
Well, there's quite a bit. I mean, and you have aquanaut vehicles, so you actually go under the ocean. You can actually do stress tests of the transatlantic internet cables, things like that. So
I want to know when I'm going to get my. Okay, you know how they got the drones that take the photos and everything?
Oh yeah.
Where's my underwater submarine drone?
Oh yeah. There are some folks that are building that. I was actually out in a collision conference in New Orleans a few months back in May, and there was a young company that they're creating a fully autonomous, basically an aqua vehicle.
Could you imagine that in the ocean? How gorgeous that would be!
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be cool if like a shark ate it.
Yeah, and actually they were actually trying to create a way to self-perpetuate, to keep it going a lot by using the flows of the water to extend the life of the battery to get it to go further.
Oh, boy, that's really deep.
Yeah, and Microsoft is another group that was doing it, but for the air, to use artificial intelligence to detect basically the thermal spaces to let these planes, these glider planes, catch those, learn how to fly in and stay in the air effectively, perpetually. So yeah, it's happening everywhere. So.
Well, once again, this is the Bakken.com's Facebook page here, and this is the weekly Bakken get-together, and we're going to be talking about the UAS, drone, UAV industry. And first of all, talk about your company a little bit. Let's just set the table of who you are and what your background is and how you're here talking about this today.
So the background, well, I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, so we don't have to talk about that. I went to college in Duluth. I was originally going for computer science.
Go Bulldogs.
Yeah, right on, yeah. And if you're familiar with the campus up there, the whole thing is connected by underground tunnels, so I didn't actually go outside for like a year and a half at one point. It was pretty great. But I was going for computer science. Ones and zeros were not for me, so I actually finished with an art degree. Paint by number was far more conducive to my world,
1 through 9.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so on my journey, after college, I wanted to go out west to pursue professional golf. actually. So I was enrolled at the Academy in San Diego, and I stopped in something called Fargo, North Dakota, when my girlfriend, now my wife, said, let's stop in Fargo, save some money. So that was about 10 years ago. Got a job at Red Lobster, because that's the next logical thing, and I got a job while serving a gentleman and his family. Says, I build websites. He says, I have a job for you. I took the job, and that was about 7.5 years ago. And I learned a little bit about precision agriculture using satellite imagery. And once I moved away from that company, we created this platform for pilots, a marketplace for folks to sell their photos and videos and be contracted to fly. It's a mapping environment for drone pilots.
How long have you been doing this?
We launched our company on May 11th. And I remember that because
2017.
Yeah, this year.
Okay, so I was
very new.
Most of these UAS companies are, unless you're Boeing or Northrop Grumman or one of the big boys, you're less than 2 years old.
For the most part.
Yeah, probably 95% of the companies.
Yeah, you've got some mavericks, some heroes like David Dvorak of Field of View, who launched many years before it was even legal to fly, and he created an entire platform out of it. So you got some folks that were forerunners that helped pave the way for folks like us, and so our give back is for the Northrop Grummans, the General Atomics, whoever it is of the world. They are supplying hardware. They're providing it to people who can fly for virtually any industry, whether it be monitoring oil and gas or construction or for real estate, getting some vanity shots. We're there to have the pilots be able to contract that work and offer that content to the people who purchased it. That's basically it.
So one of the things that Doug Goring, North Dakota Agriculture Commissioner, and I have been talking about for about over a decade now, because I've been following these UASs since 2007. I remember back when I was on a regional radio station, and I got reprimanded because I had a gentleman on, Tommy Kenville. He was on talking about, Tommy. He's like the godfather now of UAS in the state. But back back in 2007, we were talking about how Israel, where I think he just got back from a trip from Israel, they had drones the size of honeybees. This was back in 2007, folks. Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about the advancement of this industry, saw what was coming to the state, and here I'm getting reprimanded because it's like cuckoo, overnight, coast-to-coast AM alien talk stuff, and you're talking about, well, to the average person, it was science fiction. And yet what we're trying to explain to people was, and this is why the education period is so tough in technology. 10 years ago we were talking about how, Google was able to specialize ads. Well, now it's normal. Normal people expect it. But yet 10 years ago, people were getting tinfoil hatted and craziness, and no, that's just the way algorithms work. And so when you start layering this stuff in, where I'm going with all of this is that we've made so much progress over the last decade. The question that I would ask 10 years ago to people that were the higher ups in the UAS industry, and now this was through agriculture, so I'm going to take out the sunflower row and put in the word pipeline interchangeably, so it's the same concept. So the idea was, okay, where are we? Because the end goal is this. You want a drone to fly over a row of sunflowers or a pipeline, and it will monitor that row of sunflowers or that pipeline, and it'll say, oh, that one specific plant has one specific pathogen disease. And it will allow this little 4x4 four-wheeler robot to drive out to that one plant and just mist it like perfume and then drive back. And you're going to save a small fortune on pesticides. You're going to save a small fortune on gas. You're going to save a small fortune on manual labor, which is very difficult when you're talking about the crop dusting value of visuals. Because that's really what a lot of security systems are in oil and gas for a long time, was a crop duster moonlighting, essentially. So instead of the pathogen, you're going to have a piece of corrosion on a pipe that'll be picked up right away because the temperature will be different. So that's where we're going. That's where we're supposed to go. Now, the last time I talked to Goring was a couple years ago, and he said we're almost there because we have like biodegradable sensors now, which allow things to happen in real time. So we're almost there. We're almost there. But that is the end goal. It's to fly over a pipeline or to fly over a row of sunflowers or potatoes or whatever the heck, and to be able to pinpoint a mineral deficiency, a disease, a single thing. Now, where are we at? Are we there yet?
Yeah, well,
how close is science fiction now?
Well, you have quite a bit of precedence with this, but not quite at that granular scale. So take a step back. Let's talk about late 90s, early 2000s, when you have satellites, the large-scale images being taken over massive swaths of land. And you're not seeing high resolution. A pixel represents basically something that's 2 to 3, maybe 5 times the size of the room that we're in right now. You can't really identify much, but what were you trying to identify at the time? That something was wrong, not exactly what, but that something was, so that you could equip your agriculturist, your agronomist, with the ability to go out there to the site. So instead of looking at 1,600 acres, let's look at these 5 spots of about 4 or 5 acres apiece. Now you're able to expedite their workflow, understand what's going on. They attribute one, represents the same in all of them, and they're able to actually create this prescription. Now let's take a look at that. Swap out the components for oil and gas, and you have the same thing. So we recognize that, say, a lot of the wellheads, say from the 70s, for instance, a lot of different, regulation was much different back then. People haven't capped some of them. You have brine leakages, things like that. Imagine for a second if you're able to take a medium to high resolution satellite image or an aerial image or a drone image, and you're able to detect, say, for instance, that there was an uptake in salinity, for instance. You have much more salt here now. Take another image in 2 weeks, and it looks like we have a trending analytic, a growth rate of, say, 15%. And it looks like it's going to expand. So you can actually create reclamation opportunities. You can actually take these things, and these are at big scale. Mm-hmm. Now let's take a look at a specific pipe, for instance. Now, we don't know exactly where the pipes are. Thank you, North Dakota. We don't know. That's something that is, I guess, near and dear. We don't know exactly public knowledge where those pipes are, but someone does, which matters when it comes down to things like these sensors that you put into the ground, these biodegradable sensors. Post them, which are buried underneath the earth, that line up with the particular pipes, and you actually create what we'll call a mesh network that can detect the changes in electroconductivity. Could change like how wet the soil is. And could that be a leak? Could that simply be water retention after rain? Could be a combination.
Heat of the soil.
Yeah, heat of the soil. Yeah. And we don't need to know, again, we don't need to know what. We need to know that something did happen. Mm-hmm. So that instead of going through 3,000 miles of pipe, we actually go to the specific sites at basically a 6 to 12 inch resolution. Now you pair this technology with a drone, you're actually able to capture, because these things are biodegradable. It means they don't have a battery inside, which means that they're RFID, which when you fly a drone over the top of them, say 20, 30 feet, you actually pick up a signal. Mm-hmm. So this thing actually is sustainable. It's fresh. It actually was made with recycled materials. Folks at NDSU are taking care of that today already as one of many groups.
So you fly the plane over, and then the biodegradable sensor in the ground, which is picking up the information next to the pipe, pops it up to the drone. Yep. The drone then instantly layers that data in with everything that it knows from the past.
Yeah.
And it says, it's okay, or there's a 4% chance that there's a leak.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. Whatever they tell the drone to think.
Yeah, or at the very least, the drone is actually capturing this data in real time. It's connecting to some type of either cellular network, whatever it is. So you're getting small bits of information spatially. This point represents this amount of information. This thing here. You see this spatial map is created, but what really matters is when this information is collected, put into some kind of central repository, some kind of database, whatever it is, that a notification when something is outside of that threshold, it's not just that a notification is created, but who gets it. And those are the big questions that need to be answered today. Is it, Hess or whoever the oil and gas company out there? Who needs to notify? Is it border states for, like say power lines or whatever the industry is? Who needs to be notified and when? And how fast do they need that notification? And what information do they need? All of it's captured, but who needs it? Who needs what and when? Are probably the hardest questions today to answer, because a drone is no longer $30,000 a pop; they're $300 to $500 a pop.
Right.
And that was just in a short 5, 6, 7 year period. I mean, that's heroic in terms of technological advances.
I never even thought of that too. I mean, because you're going to have a lot of independent Maverick Pioneer types.
Oh yeah.
That are going to pick up some of the best data, probably that a lot of people would want.
What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do with it all?
Yeah, it's a lot of sifting, that's for sure.
So, and The other reason why we're talking about this here today, by the way, Anthony Molzahn with Aegis Flow.
Yeah.
Aegis Flow. Aegis Flow. AEGISFLO. Okay.
Yep.
And what this also represents is the evolution of the Bakken workforce. 5 years ago, we talked a lot about how these guys aren't slinging chains anymore. You know, yeah, they are a little, but not really. No, they're not. The old kind of the roughneck wildcat type days are yesterday really. And you've got guys now that are working in fracking stations that are able to drill 2 miles below the Earth's surface, and then 2 miles horizontally, and hit a pie plate. That's how precise they are with this stuff. So it's gotten a lot more artificial intelligence, if you will, a lot more technological. And what we're talking about here is really the changing workforce. And the University of North Dakota and North Dakota State and the entire North Dakota system actually is really going to be one of the more emerging job trainers in the nation for oil and gas. The amount of information or the amount of investment that's gone into the development of analytics at North Dakota State, for example, the amount of investment that's gone in from Northrop Grumman and Boeing up at the UND Grand Sky Center, as well as the Energy and Environmental Research Center up at UND, which has every single drilling core sample of oil and gas since 1950, whatever it is, the Laird Library. That's why everybody knows where the oil and gas is in the Bakken. North Dakota has kept soil samples since the 50s, so they know what it is. Once the technology is in place, they're able to go get the oil out.
It's heroic.
Yeah, isn't it just amazing? So talk to me about what you're seeing with this young startup in North Dakota that's happening, because you hear a lot about it. You know, a lot of awards happen, national awards as far as North Dakota being, one of the top startups. But a lot of it has to do with the driving of energy and precision agriculture with technology. So talk to me about that whole scene. You're part of it. You're part of it.
Well, I mean, just from my personal experience. So back up a little bit. Our team, we actually we participated in an accelerator, something that a lot of entrepreneur startups will do. And this one was actually called the Clean Tech Open Accelerator.
Clean Tech?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
No, but it sounds good. Clean Tech.
Well, sustainability, the idea of the life cycle of a product. So I don't know, actually, still to this day, why we got accepted, but I was able to convince them, I guess, that we are a software platform that is an advocate for sustainability. And so we actually showed through each of these markets how can drone services, this market that is growing fast, 127 billion in the next few years, is kind of crazy for a market that didn't exist a couple years ago at all.
And too, Obama signed. I can't remember when it was with law, but essentially, by 2020, there's going to be 20,000 drones in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how much they're laxing the laws. And so, this has been in play for a while. Like I said, I've been covering this since 2007, so I've been seeing it coming and coming and coming. And you're going to have deliveries happening. You're going to have surveillance happening.
Yeah.
Imagine the people that the North Dakota Buffalo Association is doing all kinds of testing with drones right now with herding and counting buffalo. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Bison.
Yep.
Bison. So, it's catching on well outside of precision agriculture and oil and gas. And that's where we're getting at, but a lot of it is driven by those two industries.
Oh, yeah.
For the most part. But, talk to me about how you guys are folding this all in now. Because you guys are going in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, and so that's why we've tailored it as a marketplace, so we can actually, for the industry that needs to be serviced, for those who need to find the pilot to fly, whatever it is, take the example of construction. We need to be able to judge and estimate inventory on the fly, how deep this particular pile has been dug into. How many miles of pipe do we have left on this particular site? What does it look like in real estate? Given that upper edge to be able to get that vanity shot. A good friend of mine, Matt from Skyscopes, he actually moved his company out to Minot so that he could basically go door to door and chat with the wind farmers because they detect deficiencies, degradations on the blades of these wind turbines. And I mean that's a tough sell, but that's just one of many. And that's not to say for the fact that you said 20,000. There's only almost 35,000 pilots. Like commercial drone pilots in the United States.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, about 100 to 150 are being added every single day. But the crazy thing is that there's still a shortage of pilots. I actually look at it as just an inefficiency in being able to find a pilot for a particular job. But once we do that, you're actually going to be able to see these pilots not doing this as some kind of side gig. It's going to be, I'm pretty good at real estate and I can do some construction. And, I'll try my hand at helping agriculture detect weeds, insects, or diseases, because I have a particular thermal sensor, whatever it is. You're going to see multiple industries being absorbed as a part of someone's portfolio. And that's okay. That's a good thing. You have these jack of all trades, these Renaissance drone pilots, if you will, and that's where it's going. It really has to, because there's not going to be enough opportunities until you centralize where all the opportunities need to come from, where they need to go. So. I don't know. What was the question?
I was already thinking of my next one, so I checked out about 30 seconds ago. So I'm glad you picked up on that. Yeah. That's why we love the weekly Bakken get together. It's nice and laid back here a little bit. We've got a little backup going. We got the radio. It's we got the Chizzard mug here, which I'm drinking my water out of. I call him Chizzard. And my son's
Pokemon.
My son's a Pokemon player. He was
That's awesome.
Top 8 last year, Madison, Wisconsin regionals, so he's going to go at it again this year. Well, it's the road to Pokemon. We're coming for you, St. Louis, Missouri.
That's
when
awesome.
Otis the Pokemon monster comes your way, man, he just told me he's got a new deck, Decidueye. I don't know what that means.
Sounds powerful. Sounds scary.
It sounds like it's going to kick some St. Louis butt. So
How old is
he's 11 now.
11.
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
And he first time he ever played, he got in the top 8. So
wow.
yeah, he's just he played chess since age like
15, 16-year-olds, you beware.
It's Anthony Molzahn is our guest here today at the weekly Bakken Get Together. We're talking about UAS in general and how that's being folded into the oil and gas industry. And I say folded in because it's slowly coming in. I mean, more and more people are adapting it. Talking with Lynn Helms a few weeks ago, Governor Doug Burgum, they obviously affirmed it, but then also gave some examples. If you go back and take a look at the weekly Bakken Get Together, you can see we have those in there. This next segment here, because we've got just about 5 minutes, 6, 7 minutes left here. And then we're going to let you folks get back to your lunches and everything like that. But we're going to do a little bubble gum for the mind. It's not too often that I get to talk about Moore's Law, which is really fun. Okay, so what the very crib notes version of Moore's Law is that since like the 60s, we'll say, the size of a processor has reduced in size by half every 18 months. Okay, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. It started out the size of a car, and now it's the size of a nanobot. Mm-hmm. And also what happens is that it gets twice as fast every 18 months. So every 18 months, the size goes twice as small and the speed goes twice as fast. That's a very unique concept that's gone against all laws of everything. That's why we have cell phones in our hand, okay? That's why you have little fit bracelets that tell you your heart rate, et cetera, et cetera. That's why we have drones. Yeah. That's why we're doing Facebook Live. Okay, that's why we live. That's why your kids have no idea what PBS is and what an Atari is and what commercials are and that sort of thing. And so anyway, bubblegum for your mind. Where I'm going with this, what's going to happen over the next 5 years is going to be incredible. In fact, I don't think anybody watching has any idea what's going to happen over the next 5 years, because we are going to fold in so much big data from energy, from oil and gas, from hairstylists, from Amazon.com, right?
Yeah.
What's happening is that we're folding more and more of this big data up, and so when you go to your computer and you go to your homepage and all your ads are personalized, because of some Google search you did before, that sort of thing. That's going to happen with so many different aspects of your life. The facial recognition software with Facebook really scares me to the Minority Report days, but that's a reality now, folks. So I want to ask you about I don't know if you want to take the ethics route or if you want to take, here's how you're going to make lots of money route, but the change is coming.
Oh, yeah.
And the average person, it's going to happen so fast that they're not even going to know what's going to happen. So talk to me about the folding in of all this big data, where you see it going, because you do understand what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, there's a real-world example, speaking of facial recognition. So there was a study done. It was just some news reporter went out. They've got, I think, China has something like 40,000, 400,000, something like that, CCTVs across one of their major cities. And what they did is this gentleman, he went to the police station and he said, all right, put me on your radar, and I want you to go find me. He walks out the door, and he basically tries to hide himself from public, and through automation, facial recognition software, it took us 7.5 minutes to both track down and bring him to jail. In fact, it went so fast that the authorities that picked him up had no idea that this was a stunt that was done, and treated him to the full extent because he was a suspect within the Chinese regulation. 7.5 minutes with basically a few 100,000 CCTVs with facial recognition software installed, working together in a mesh network.
And that's what the guy trying to avoid what he knows.
Yeah.
Like, he knows all that stuff's there, and he's trying to avoid it.
Yes.
And in 7.5 minutes, he slipped up.
Yeah. It basically, that was all it was. He was like, "What is it going to take?" And so he was pretty casual with it. But as far as from an ethical standpoint, I won't take the stance on that. But there's obviously going to be a financial impact for folks who are, let's say, drone service providers, for instance, just in oil and gas. One thing that's big is that these wellheads, these rigs, they go down. There are issues, and they a lot have a specialty pieces. Imagine for a second if you were able to fly over and get a high resolution image of these particular wellheads, so you know exactly what materials that you need to bring on site. Or furthermore, you actually fold that in with another technology that is totally decoupled from this conversation, is 3D printing. You actually now have custom high resolution, high density 3D printers that can actually print these tools and these materials on site, and you can actually have one or two of those within maybe a 30 or 40 mile radius to update all of the rigs to get them in working order. Talk about the O-rings, to be able to print those on site. These are big things that are changing to granularize the process, but then to expedite the workflow. Both are happening at the same time, and you want to talk about Moore's Law, just take it away from technology and reapply it. You're actually going faster by being able to make cheaper materials on site. You're cutting out the middleman.
Crazy. I mean, and like 5 years ago, I want to say that Google challenged the World Health Organization, or the World Health Organization had to go to Google because Google knew about cold outbreaks before anybody. Because of the Google searches. All the number of people that were searching for home remedies for coughs and colds and all these different things. So here the people that we pay to keep in track of our lives are actually going to the private business to find things that they're supposed to find out. That's another part that's changing, and that's where the North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum keeps talking about, that the big data is going to change the government, it's going to change the way we do business, and oil and gas has been very upfront saying they're rewriting their business plan right now because they understand how much technology has impacted it.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm in the media. Listen, the LA Times made money for 110 years, and then the internet came along, and they declared bankruptcy 10 years later. I lost my ass in 2009, 2007, because I invested hundreds of thousands of dollars of the internet when nobody was paying us. So right now, I joked last week, I'm on reinvention of myself number 10 over the last 10 years, because nobody's figured out the media yet. Nobody has. Because we don't know how to make money and how to really create a model that works in the media. So we're trying all these different things. And and that's what's happening in so many other industries, is that they are trying to figure out how to do some things. Now, luckily for oil and gas, is they have it figured out, and they're just implementing the plan as they go. In the UAS industry, they haven't figured this stuff out yet. They're still figuring out how a lot of the logarithms and analogarithms works and everything. I was talking to John Nowicki from NDSU.
Yep.
He's like a godfather over there. He's been doing this stuff for a long time. A big part of it was camera sensors. They were flying miles above Hillsboro, North Dakota, trying to figure out all these different things to do for UAS. Well, when the next generation of cameras came along, boy, that made their job so much easier, didn't it?
Yeah, and that was actually with a partnership with Elbit Systems, I believe.
Okay.
And that actually, I think they repurposed the Hawk, I can't remember from Northrop Grumman or whatever, and that thing can fly at about 7,000 feet. It's been basically solar panel arrays. They took all of the machinery out of it. It's got great camera systems. This thing can fly for something like 16 hours at a time.
Made out of packing peanuts, pretty much.
And the next iteration of it, so this one can only fly at about 7,000, but their goal is to get these things to fly in Class A airspace, which means that they can fly at about 28 to 40,000 feet. And when that happens, and you get two of these flying in tandem, you're going to have perpetual surveillance of basically any geostationary object you want. If you want to get 24-hour access to, say, the Bakken, for instance, to see degradation changes, you want to be able to zoom in and see logistical changes between, someone delivering a shipment to be able to go to the docking station or somewhere in between. You're able to have perpetual access to that because you have birds that are able to stay in the air because of the sustainable technologies that have been embedded into it. Yeah, and also a great camera. Yeah.
Brave new world, baby. That's where we're at. That's where we're at. So anyway, that's probably going to do it this week for the weekly Bakken get together. We've got science fiction that we're talking about, but it's actually reality, and we're here. And, I remember, several years ago, 3-4 years ago, I want to say that the state of North Dakota, they were hiring basically crop duster type people that were checking pipes. And it's been fun to see the evolution happen as we've been getting to, the drones coming in to check not only the pipes and the safety and the security and all these different things, but it's happening in so many different areas. I'm actually enjoying watching my photographer friends. It's so fun to see people use toys and adults use toys, and they go out and they get these aerial shots and but they know how to wait for the light to come out, and they don't rely on Photoshop for a lot. That's what I mean by my photographer friends. Those are the ones, the people who understand art.
I'm a photographer. I know what you mean.
You went to school for it. So anyway, it's fun. So anyway, that's going to do it this week here. And Anthony, one more time, plug your organization. Thank you for coming out and talking. So talk a little bit and give this guy some business. How can people give you business?
Yeah, well, so we're building our platform. It's a marketplace for drone pilots to sell photos and videos, be contracted to fly. It's Aegis Flow, AEGISFLOW.com. My name is Anthony, and honestly, I just want to say thank you for today. This is an absolute pleasure. A lot of fun. Just kind of a little nonchalant chat. Thank you for listening in, and I look forward to having a conversation with some of the folks out there. So
that's going to do it this week for the weekly Bakken Get Together. My name is Jason Spiess, and once again, I have to write down my social media followers here because I'd like to thank the 60,000 Bakken.com followers, the Marcellus.com 47,000, Eagleford 50,000, Permian 20,000, Haynesford 15,000, Niobrara is at 10,000, and then when we add up the when we add up the Twitter followers as well, that puts us over 250,000 social media followers. So thank you very much. Namaste to you people in India. And for those of you people over in South America that have downloaded our podcasts, we appreciate that very much because this is a global economy now. In fact, just 2 weeks ago in the Weekly Word, if you scroll down and listen to Jim Willis from the Marcellus Drilling News, he was the one who broke the fact that China is going to invest $84 billion with a B into West Virginia's energy system. So the global economy is here, and we're going to keep following all these things right here at the Weekly Bakken Get Together. We'll see you next week, folks.